In this episode of MarieTV, we do have some adult language. So if you have little ones around, grab your headphones now. Hey, it's Marie Forleo, and you are watching MarieTV, the place to be to create a business and life you love. And today is so special, I can't handle it. First of all, I just have to tell you, today is the day that my book is officially born. What's up? Come on, you guys. Are you freaking excited? And get this. The tables are turned because today I ain't interviewing me. My best friend in the whole entire world, Miss Kris Carr, is here. Yay! So if y'all don't know Kris Carr, so we are BFFs. We are true best friends in everything in life, but we just call her a wellness warrior. She's a New York Times bestselling author. I sometimes call her Cucumber Jesus. She is a magical unicorn. She is all those things. And Kris, I'm so excited because you're interviewing me today.
Girl, I am so happy to be here. Welcome to my show.
Yes. So, all right. So this is like, we've literally never done this before. I've never done this before, and it's kind of awesome. So how do we do it? What do you want to talk to me about?
Here's what we're going to do. Okay. We're going to start by giving you a little gush. We're going to do a little praise festival for you because this beautiful baby that you created that came out today, which is so exciting, I've watched you from the beginning, from the day that you got the deal to the day you started writing. I've seen you put your heart and your soul and your smarts and all
and
of your
tears.
And I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I pay attention. I bring the tissues. All of it. You put it all in here. And what you created is a masterpiece. And I don't say that just because I'm your best friend, because you know I always tell you the truth. Yeah. It's a masterpiece. And it's going to give so many people that inspiration to not only believe in themselves, but to own those unique gifts that you always talk about. And I'm not done gushing yet, fans, because it's your book. So what else is going to come with that? You back it up with the tools and the tips and the strategies to help people make those dreams come true. So I just want to say I'm brava, baby. Brava.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you.
Here's one of the things, we're going to tell a lot of stories today. I'm going to tell a lot of stories about you and about, the things that you've taught me over the years. But something that is so true about you is that you are lit up by figuring things out. This is just in your DNA, and we're going to get to why it's in your DNA. But whether it's creating an incredible live experience for people or an unbelievable online training program or taking your relationship to the next level or, I'm not done, or creating these amazing adventures for your friends. And here's one of my most favorite recent ones. Fixing shit yourself.
Yes.
Like, do you remember when you called me and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got the best news. And I thought, like, maybe you're going to be on Oprah again. You're like, I fixed my chest of drawers all by myself.
Yes.
I didn't need to call anybody. I got in there, I rolled up my sleeves, and I figured it out.
Yes, with a wire hanger.
Yes, you did. You did. And I was like, oh, that's what you did? Okay, great. Yeah, good you.
I know. Silly like that.
You're amazing like that. And so my first question is, where does this come from? What is the origin story of this incredible philosophy mantra? And what does it mean?
So it comes from my mama, who is this amazing character, which you know. So for y'all who don't know my mom, she is this powerful, mighty, tiny woman. She's like 5'3". She looks like June Cleaver. She cusses like a truck driver. And she's probably like one of the most industrious people that I have ever come across in my whole life. So she grew up in the projects of Newark, New Jersey, and she learned really by necessity, how to stretch a dollar bill around the block like 5 times. And so she made a promise to herself that when she grew up, that she was going to make a better life for herself. And one of my favorite memories from childhood was sitting around the kitchen table with my mom in New Jersey, and like the Sunday paper was spread out all over the table, and we used to love to do crafts together. So we had all these little scissors, and she would teach me how to cut out the right coupon so that we could save money. And she would also teach me about the fact that, oh, well, if, we get X boxes of this or save X cartons of this, that we could get this cool free stuff that brands would send you, like a great new cookbook or utensils or like something that we could actually use. And one of her most prized possessions in the universe was this tiny little transistor radio that she got for free. It was shaped like an orange. It had this red and white striped straw sticking out of the side. That was the antenna. It was a little transistor radio from Tropicana orange juice. And she loved that thing. And she would carry it around the house with her when she was like doing laundry and, doing housework or doing something in the yard. And it was kind of the way that I knew where to find my mom, because she's always busy and always doing something. And I would listen for the sound of that radio. And I remember one time I came home from school and I was walking home and I heard the radio off in the distance. And I got closer and the sound was coming from up above, which felt really odd. And when I got close to the house, I looked up and my mom was perched like very precariously on the roof of our 2-story house. And, as like a tiny little kid, it just was so scary. And I yelled up, I'm like, Mom, like, are you okay? Like, what are you doing? And my mom, who's like got that little Jersey edge, she was like, Ree, I'm fine. It's no problem. Like the roof had a leak and I called the roofer and he said it was going to be at least $500. I said, screw that. I saw some asphalt in the garage and I'm fixing it. And then there's this other time I came home from school and I walked in the door and the sound was coming from the back of the house. So I followed it to the back of the house and it was coming from the bathroom. And like the door was slightly cracked open and there was dust particles and I pushed the door open and my mom is sitting in our bathroom. There's pipes coming out of the wall. It's like a war zone, right? Like everything's just huddled in around her. And I'm like, Mom, are you okay? And she's like, I'm fine. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, the tiles had some cracks in it and I didn't want the bathroom to get moldy. So I'm retiling the bathroom. So you probably remember this time and hopefully some of our viewers do. Like this is the 80s, right? Very pre-internet, pre-YouTube, pre-Google. My mom has no more than a high school education. So she was just like MacGyver in terms of figuring out how to do things. So there was this one day when I came home from school and it was the fall. It was actually a little bit later than what time it is right now. So it was dark out early and it was a little scary. And I got home and the entire house was dark and silent, which is incredibly unusual for an Italian-American house. And I go in the door and it was eerie because it was so dark and quiet and I didn't hear the radio and I couldn't find my mom. And so I'm walking around trying to find out where she is and, your mind starts making up stories and I really thought like there's a big problem here. And then I heard these clicks and clacks coming from by the kitchen. And I walk into the kitchen and I see my mom like hunched over the kitchen table and it looked like an operating room. There was electrical tape and screwdrivers and in like 15 pieces was my mom's beloved Tropicana orange just all spread out. And I was like, Mom, are you okay? Like, did your radio break? What's going on? And she's like, oh, Ree, I'm fine. The antenna was a little off and the dial wasn't working. So I'm fixing it. And Kris, that was like the first time that I had enough, kind of forethought to say, hey, Mom, how do you know how to do so many things that you've never done before, but nobody's showing you how to do them? And she like put down her screwdriver and she like looked at me with that cockhead look and she was like, what are you talking about? It's no big deal. Really, Reed, nothing in life is that complicated. You can do anything you set your mind to. If you just roll up your sleeves, you get in there and you do it. Everything is figureoutable. And I was like, ding. Yeah, like little Marie was just like, oh my God, everything is figured out. Everything is like that's kind of what reverberated in my soul. And I feel like from that moment on, it has been the single biggest driving belief, force, conviction, mantra that has taken me through every single crevice of my life.
Well, we're going to get into that driving force and that philosophy throughout the course of this interview. But I want to continue by unpacking our beliefs.
Yeah.
So you say that if you change your belief, you change everything.
Yes.
But for people who are deeply entrenched in old, potentially negative, limiting beliefs, and it's just ingrained like a deep record groove that they don't feel like they can get out of.
Yes.
What do you say?
Well, here's the good news, that all beliefs are a choice and choices can be changed, right? So every belief is a choice and choices can be changed if we are willing.
Okay.
If we are willing. And so I always like to tell people, like think about some things that maybe you believed when you were little. Like I believed Smurfs were real. Do you know what I mean?
They're not.
They're not. I know. Well, they are real for some people. Exactly.
Guys.
Santa Claus. How many things did we make? I know. I'm like ruining some lives right now. But seriously, There are things that I'm sure all of us can look back on and know that we once believed were the truth, and time or experience or wisdom or the world shifting. I mean, even if we take it in a global sense, right? And this is kind of funny. At one point, all of society thought that the world was flat. And we don't anymore. This was actually some inside baseball. So when I was working on the manuscript, I write this in the book that, at one point we thought the world was flat and now we believe it's round. And they were like, yeah, but some people actually think the world is still flat. They're called flat earthers. I was like, well, those motherfuckers are not my audience, because that's fine. Go on with your best self. But I just don't think that's the truth. So
Did you hear that, flat earthers? We're coming for you.
They're actually going to come from me. I know that right now.
No,
but
I'm backing you up.
Yes, but you know what I mean. So therein lies, I think, for all of us, this possibility that things that we once believed that we don't have to anymore, therein lies the possibility of change, should you want to.
Okay, so just to take that a little bit deeper.
Yes.
Because you handled this so well in the book, and I'm so glad that you did. Obviously, not everybody has the same privileges, unfortunately.
Yes.
That's just the way the world is, and that sucks.
Yes.
So for the people who are dealing with debilitating illnesses or deep loss or income inequality or horrific social injustice.
Yes.
What do you say to them?
Okay, so a couple things I say to them. First, I acknowledge very clearly up front, like as a white woman born in the United States, I am clear that I've won what Warren Buffett has called the ovarian lottery, right? So I get that. And that's why it was actually really important for me in this book to include stories that are from such a wide range of individuals, not just from the United States, but from the developing world and across history. And quite frankly, a lot of women's stories. That's who we center on in the book, so that everyone has an opportunity to see a version of themselves or has some story that they can relate to in the book. So that's one. And then in terms of the idea of facing really hard, devastating truths like death, addiction, loss, illness, one of the most inspiring things to me has been the letters that we've received from people who have been using this idea for years. So let me tell you one. So it's probably the first letter that we received from someone who saw the Oprah talk, right? So, done everything was Figureoutable for Oprah. And then a lot of folks were exposed to this idea for the first time. And so we got this letter from a woman named Jen. And she said, Marie, I was so excited to watch your talk. The idea was something that my mom, who I love so much, had been trying to teach me for so long. And the way that you spoke about it really got through. And then me and my mom watched it together and we both loved it. And we were so excited. But then everything changed. And her mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And in that instant, everything didn't seem figure-outable to her. But something deeper felt like it still was. So she tried to step back and look at it from a fresh perspective. And then she realized actually things were figure-outable. For example, finding nursing care for her mom who lived in a really rural area, like finding foods that her mom could actually tolerate, like getting the right medical equipment so that her mom could spend her last days and like her last 5 weeks in her home, which was exactly where she wanted to be. And so Jen said, it turns out that everything really is figure-outable. And I want to thank you so much for sharing that idea because it made such a difference to two people on the other side of the world that you've never met. They're both in New Zealand. And so we have so many stories like that in the book of people that have gone through such difficult and are still going through such difficult situations, but they use this idea to awaken something in themselves that gives them a chance to show up for whatever difficult thing they're facing with as much power and creativity and compassion for themselves as others as possible.
You know what I love about that story, and obviously, it's a story close to my heart. But love is figureoutable. You might not always get what you want.
Yes.
And sometimes you get something even deeper.
Yeah.
And my dad's going through pancreatic cancer, but I will say, back to my original diagnosis, when I was told you need a triple organ transplant and you'll be lucky if you have 10 years to live, I was like, no, I need to figure this out. I need to become the CEO of me and find the best team and hire and fire and step into my power. And if I didn't have that belief, and we didn't know each other back then, but I think we did somehow, the cosmos was
yes.
bringing us together, it would just be a matter of time. If I didn't step into that belief, I know I wouldn't be here today. And if my family wasn't stepping into that belief right now, we wouldn't be able to, really show up for my dad. So I so appreciate that story. And there's countless stories like that in the book. And what I got so much inspiration from was it's not only stories of people who have been following you for years and have used all of your strategies and tools and tips and everything that you give so generously every week on MarieTV, but also B-School students who have just done incredible things with their lives and their businesses, and then stories of people who are legends that we all look up to and aspire to be, and how they've used this belief to get where they are now.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, if we look throughout history, any major breakthrough we as humanity have experienced, whether it's in the arts or sciences, medicine, entertainment, athletics, anything, they might not have used these exact words, but the spirit of the belief was there, right? So if the Wright brothers didn't believe that human flight was possible, we wouldn't be able to travel around like we do today. If there weren't women who believed that we should have the right to vote and fought for years and decades, we would have never had that. So I think the spirit is what has embedded every major breakthrough in human history. And I would also love to talk about, I don't know if you're going there, so you let me know, the rules that we have that kind of set this up in terms of—
I would love to talk about that.
Yeah. So this was interesting. When I first started writing the book, I went out with a dear friend who has an 8-year-old son. Mm-hmm. And they were just asking what I was working on. I was talking about the book. And the son asked oh, what's the title of your book? And I said, Everything is Figureoutable. And he was like, no, it's not. And I was like, tell me more. You know what I mean? I was like, what don't you think is figureoutable?
Yeah,
have a seat. Tell Mama Marie what is not figureoutable. And he was like, well, you can't grow human working wings out of your back and fly away. And I was like, well, that is true right now, but we humans can indeed fly. And he was like, that's right. He's like, well, I can't bring back, my childhood dog that died, when I was 2. And I was like, well, that's true right now. I said, but scientists are definitely working on cryogenics, and there are some people cloning the dogs. We definitely know about that. Yeah. Shout out, what is it? Is it Bette Midler who's done it?
I think you're right. Yeah. No, Barbara Streisand.
Barbara Streisand. That's right. That's right. So, those things are possible. I said, just because something hasn't been figured out yet doesn't mean it's not figureoutable. But that conversation with the 8-year-old really prompted this wonderful set of rules that I like to share in terms of this idea, because it creates a mental container for all of us to focus on how we can use this idea to grow and change. So rule number 1 is this: all problems or dreams are figureoutable. Rule number 2, if a problem is not figureoutable, it's not a problem, it's a fact of life or a law of nature, death, gravity, etc. Rule number 3, you may not care enough to solve this particular problem or reach this particular dream, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But find something that really fires up your heart and go back to rule number 1. And so I think that little framing helps us stay within a zone of focusing on what we, not only what we actually care enough about to invest in, but there's another place in the book where we talk about the importance of making a distinction between what we can and can't control and putting the lion's share of our attention and our energy there. And I think the last thing I would say for anyone going like, is everything really figure-outable? There is this quantum theorist, his name is David Deutsch, and he has this incredible quote that says, everything that is not forbidden by the laws of nature is achievable given the right knowledge. And this book that he wrote, The Beginning of Infinity, is like mind-blowing. Like it just hurts your brain to even read 5 pages, at least mine. But you don't have to take a quantum theorist's word for it or my word. I say to everyone listening, try it before you deny it. Right?
I love that.
Test it, live it, experience it, and see if it doesn't support you in becoming more resourceful and more creative and more resilient.
So this is so you, and I love this chapter, and you've actually had me eliminate many excuses in my own life. But you talk about that if it's important enough, you'll make the time. If it's not, you'll make an excuse.
Yes. That's like the thing I use to keep myself in line all the damn time.
Yeah.
Because excuses will suffocate our lives. They're like dream killers if we allow them to. And I can't tell you how many times my mind, you've known me for so long now. It's like, I think all of us can go like, I don't have the time. I just don't have the time.
I want to talk about that one.
Okay,
yeah,
let's talk about it. Yeah.
Because so many people, and in this chapter, which is so great, you're really encouraging people to carve out at least 2 hours a day.
Yes.
Right? And some people will be like, is she high? Was she smoking? Where'd she get it? Is there CBD involved in it, or is it just straight THC? What is happening, right?
Totally.
But so with those people, for all of us, myself included, who say, I'm just so overstretched.
Yeah.
I mean, if I find 15 minutes, that's awesome. But you're saying over 2 hours. What do you say to those people? And what are also some of the tips? Because I love them and I'm already starting to use them.
Yeah. So I think time is probably one of the biggest things that we all feel because we're living in such a world right now. There's so much incoming in terms of data and information. We're spending so much time on our devices and our phones. And one of the things I discovered doing research for the book was that most of us grossly underestimate the amount of time that we spend on technology.
It's disgusting.
Well, we're so unconscious to it because it's become so automatic. And so that's one of the first places that I always look when I see myself seeping into that. Like, I ain't got the time. I'm like, that's some bullshit, right? I need to dial that back and get real with myself. So that is actually one of the tips, is to start off and to begin actually tracking your time and to do it for 7 days. Just as an exercise in research, just to see exactly where your time goes from the moment you wake up until the moment that beautiful head lays on the pillow at night, to see, is everywhere you're spending your time, is every single thing that you're doing actually aligned with your heart's highest values and dreams and goals. And if not, it's not about beating yourself up, but that's kind of our groundwork where we have to look in order to make changes. And so there are a lot of practical tips and tools that we talk about in that chapter, but I think the time tracking exercise for 7 days is so crucial. And here's the thing though, you can't track your time and try and look good to yourself on paper. Do you know what I mean?
You have to be honest?
You got to be real stinking honest.
Okay.
You can't do it to look good and to start changing things so that you show up great on paper and be like, look, this shit don't work. And because
if you're tweezing extra chin hairs too long,
seriously,
write it down.
Write it down. I mean, do you know how many times a day I'm in the mirror tweezing? This just takes so long.
It looks great.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know if that's bad time spent.
I consider it well time spent, but I think for all of us, there's these little pockets of where you're flittering away time on things that actually don't matter. And we have some great charts in the book where it's if you find yourself even spending 30 minutes a day in email, social, whatever, and you have dreams of, let's say, writing a book or learning a language or making over your financial life, getting a relationship back to a healthy place, getting your health back into a place of strength. you can reallocate that time to something that is of much higher value to you and to your dreams and to figuring out whatever that thing is that's most important to you.
It's really shocking, and I think it's such a great exercise. And you always champion people not to beat themselves up when they're really doing that honest inventory.
Yeah.
And I think you have so many stats in this book, which are so great. But like, I had no idea that the average American is spending up to 5 hours a day on social or on their phones, and up to 5 hours a day watching television.
Yes. And again, there's people, who are watching the show right now. I was like, that's definitely not me. But if you actually start to pay attention, I mean, sometimes I look at my own habits, right? And there's something we talk about in the book, and I don't know if you want to get into this or not. It might be too kind of deep, but the distinction between can't versus won't.
Oh, that's the next question.
Oh,
are you psychic?
I am, girl.
What's going on? Let's do it.
Let's do it. So for anyone watching right now who feels like, I want to get rid of my excuses, but I don't know how, there are 2 4-letter words that can help you really annihilate any excuse, especially around time, and it's can't versus won't. So you might say to yourself, I can't get myself back into that strong fit place. I just don't have the time to work out.
Right.
I can't possibly write a book. Everything else is so busy. I can't forgive my sister. I can't X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And you really believe it. And I've said those things and really believed them at times. But if you play this little game with yourself and you replace the word can't with the word won't, what happens 99% of the time is something much more truthful and honest. I won't forgive her. I'm not willing. I don't want to do the work. It's too many feelings come up.
Right.
I won't write my book because I won't make space for it in my calendar. I want to sit and watch the Netflix. I want to watch the Stranger Things. I want to watch the Handmaid's Tale. I want to watch the whatever it is because that's how I'm actually spending my time. So when you insert the word won't, wherever you say can't, 9 times out of 10, you're going to feel this kind of surge of lightness because you're finally being honest. And again, won't means you're not willing, you don't want to put in the time, or it's not more important than your other priorities that you've already stated you must focus on. And when you get real with yourself like that, it doesn't make you lazy, it makes you honest. And I think that when we're really in that space of truth-telling between us and us, that's where the real magic can happen. The excuses fall away and you're like, oh, I don't want to write a book right now. You know why? Because I'm not.
Right.
I don't want to learn to speak Italian right now. You know why, Kris? Because I'm not. In my free time, I'm actually doing other things like hanging out with you or, going on roller coasters or watching that Stranger Things or whatever it is, because that's what I want to do. So I think that there is just a lot to be gained for all of us in that exercise of can't versus won't and really working to eliminate excuses out of our life.
That was such a powerful reframe for me because with the won't, switching it from can't, because I do say can't more than I'd like to say. After I read that chapter, I had to do a little self-analysis.
Yeah.
And when I did the reframe, I was like, okay, so basically if it truly is a won't, then I'm making a healthy boundary and that's okay. And I can let it go and move on to other things like you're saying.
Yes.
But I also got something else, which is I got this surge of fire. And I'd have to basically say to you, do you need to go to Spanky Town, USA right now? Is that the trip that you're going to take? Not first class in the back towards the bathroom? Because what it did was it actually really made me challenge my beliefs. Like, really? Really, you won't? Truly, you won't because you want to stay in your comfort zone? Why is this won't coming up? And then, when I was doing that exercise, I realized, okay, I'm just digging my heels in. I'm just being stubborn. I'm just scared. I'm just scared to do something I've never done before.
There you go. And then we start having a real conversation between us, and fear is totally figureoutable. Okay,
fear. The F word. The other F word.
The F word you must embrace.
Yes, you must. And don't offend yourself, as Marie would say.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want you to tell a story. Because though I don't like that this happened to you, because I never want your knees to be skinned ever.
Yes.
I love the story of when you wiped out on the rental scooter. Can you talk about that?
Oh my goodness. So Josh and I were on a vacation. Usually we try, at this stage in my life, I try and do one adventure with him a year, right? And so this is a couple years ago, and we were so excited to be in Italy. And it was a particular place where the way you get around is on scooter. There's not that many cars on this particular island. And I hadn't ridden a scooter in like 20 years, but I was like, it can't be that difficult. I could totally do this. So we rented these scooters, and this is like in the middle of July, which it is hot as anything in Europe in the middle of July. Yeah. So I had on shorts and sneakers, and we're like going over this rental place. And I don't speak much Italian. And the folks who ran, the woman who was actually the owner of the rental place, didn't speak much English. And so while we were renting our scooters, she's like, hey, do you need us to tell you what to do? And I was like, yes, please tell me anything. Tell me everything. And so she kind of walked me through the motions. He was like a this to give a break, like a this to give a gas. And I was like, okay, amazing. I thought I got it. Put on the helmet. Josh and I are like going out in front of the rental scooter place. And I cannot believe, I don't even know how this happened, but somehow I both gassed it and braked it like full on at the same time. Within like 3 seconds, the scooter like popped, flipped, landed on top of me on the asphalt. I cannot even believe, I don't even know how it happened. Thank God there were no other cars around. Yeah. There were no other scooters around. I didn't break anything, which was like a miracle because I landed on bare skin. Mm-hmm. And the folks from the rental scooter place and Josh, they heaved the bike off of me. And I don't know if any of you guys relate. Have you ever tripped or something bad happens, you fall or there's some type of accident and you feel this wave of shame?
Totally.
This total wave of shame and embarrassment. Even though you've almost practically died, all you're like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I was so engulfed with embarrassment and humiliation, and also just physically shaken up. It was the same feeling when Josh and I were hit pretty bad in an accident several years ago where your body is just vibrating. Yeah. And of course, the folks from the rental agency were like, let's don't sue us. Let's take that bike back. Yeah. Why don't we give him a bigger bike and you can just sit on the back and be a passenger and look around Italy. And in that moment, I had a choice. And it was the choice of get back up and learn to ride or be a passenger. And I chose get back up and learn to ride because I didn't want the fear of scooters and scootering and driving to calcify in my bones. And I knew that I'd done this before, and I knew that if I had better instruction that I could totally do it. And so I took it really slow and I had them explain to me, and I just breathed through the fear, and I got really present and didn't try and make it go away, but just actually experienced all of it. And it was just a great reminder about how often all of us wipe out in life. All of us, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, creatively, all of us faceplant. And so it's not a matter of whether or not we are going to faceplant. The matter is, are you going to get back up and ride again?
Well, you say, just because I made a mistake and messed up didn't mean I was going to give up.
Yes.
And when I read that, I wrote right next to it, I was like, that is so her. That's so her. Meanwhile, I would have hired a driver for my Vespa. Okay, that is not so me. I would be like, Stanley.
You would have your gin and tonic.
I would.
You would.
Absolutely. I would need a lot of time to recover from that. So another thing that I appreciate, and this is something that I live by, is that you can't amputate any emotions. You can't eliminate them. They're all welcome to the party, welcome to the table.
Yes.
It's not about crushing fear, eliminating fear, annihilating fear.
Correct.
Also violent, by the way.
Yeah.
It is about learning to receive the messages, because fear is so, so smart. And you talk about this, and, fear for me was, I feel something, I better go to the doctor. Right? So thank goodness for that fear.
Yes.
Right? But the trick that you talk about, which I want you to unpack more, is how do you determine what are messages and how do you get out of a place of paralysis?
Yes. So distinguishing the difference between fear and intuition. And I think, so one of the baseline ideas that I'm proposing in the book is that outside of the fear of walking in front of a moving bus or a train, which is really healthy fear, right? keeps you alive. Most other fear we feel, not all of it, these days, it's actually directive. So fear is like a GPS for where your soul most wants to go. And fear, just like an infant or like a beautiful little puppy or even a dog, a baby or an animal doesn't have language skills. So, Kuma, my dog, barks his head off when he's trying to tell me something. There's the UPS guy at the door, like, I want to play ball, any number of things. Or like babies, like, change my diaper, I'm hungry, I'm not feeling good. So they're making sounds, they're giving you a signal, and you have to interpret that signal correctly. Fear is the same way. She's your friend. She is not like waving her hands up and down, making you feel something to say, stop, don't do it. She's like, do it for fuck's sake. Like, this is the thing I'm trying to get you to pay attention to because it's where your soul wants you to go. So that's kind of lesson number one. But then the question that always comes up for people is, how do I tell the difference between fear and intuition? Like, healthy fear that I should move through and grow through versus my intuition going like, no, this is not a good place for you. You need to kind of dial it back. And so there's this really simple test that I've used my whole life. And obviously, after you've kind of done your logical reasoning thinking, pro-con list, saying like, do I actually want to do this? But you're looking at these two opportunities on paper and you can't decide if it's fear or intuition. By the way, this most often happens when your ego's involved. So when there's an opportunity and there's like either great prestige, you think you're going to get ahead of the pack, you think, there's a lot of money involved, you think somehow you're going to be like, oh, I'm the big shot right now. But something in you is like, don't do it. Don't say yes. Here's the thing. Get really still, get really quiet, close your eyes. You have to go inside for this. And you're going to ask yourself a simple question. Does the idea of moving ahead with this opportunity, with this person, with this job, with this gig, whatever it is, make me feel expansive or contracted? The moment you ask yourself that question, if you are tuned inside, if you close your eyes, I guarantee you this, the nanosecond after you ask that question, your body is actually going to answer for you. There is going to be a visceral physical response. Expansive will often feel like you're moving forward in space, or like a lightness in your chest, or your shoulders are back and down, or your chin is lifted. If we were talking in Marie Kondo terms, like something inside would spark joy, right? It's just this feeling. Even if you're a little scared about it, it still feels like this. Contraction, on the other hand, it's like a sense of dread or heaviness in your belly, or your shoulders hunching down, or even subconsciously your head shaking no, or just something is pulling back, even if it doesn't make logical sense. And so I offer that to people because, first of all, it's always worked in my life. Two, anyone I've taught it to, they're like, oh my goodness, this is genius. I know instantly. And here's the thing, you have to be willing to take that leap of faith, because oftentimes the deal, the opportunity looks real good on paper, but your instinct knows way better. There is so much more wisdom in your body than in your logical, reasonable mind. And just most of us in today's society, we're just living from the neck up. We're so sedentary that we've lost our ability to tap into this wisdom.
We do that a lot together when we get on Skype because we don't live close to each other. So, we Skype
a lot.
Most days.
We Skype and FaceTime constantly.
And I can't count the number of times we've said to each other, what does your body say?
Totally.
And boy, does it.
It's like Shakira, right? The hips don't lie, the body don't lie.
Exactly. Exactly. I want to tell a little story about, and you're going to help me with the story, because something that you do so well and you've helped me with is some of our fears are vague.
Yes.
And when we keep them vague, we can't really understand them.
Yes.
So for the longest time, I've had a fear of
roller coasters. Oh my gosh. So you guys, wait, can I just tell you that I didn't really know this. And one time we were at dinner with a bunch of friends and I was like,
oh my
Kris,
gosh.
I was like, when was the last time you were on a roller coaster? And she was sitting next to me and I looked over and she literally started bawling. Like, I was like, holy shit. You like started crying right there.
Do you know why I started crying?
Tell us.
Because you can sell shit to a horse, okay? So I knew what was coming. I was crying because I saw my future self on a fucking roller coaster. That's why I was crying.
Oh my goodness.
But here's the thing. Here's what's so magical. So we're in LA together. We're doing a little artist retreat where you're working on the book and I'm working on a meditation album, and we would get together and, have lunch and, share what we had done that day.
Yes.
And then you're like, we're going to Universal Studios. Is that where we're? Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like,
we both love scary movies, and there was October Halloween Fest,
which I'm all in for.
Yes.
All the time. But I said to you, I'm like, I will go to this establishment with you if you do not bring up roller coasters. Like, I'm not doing it.
Y'all, you want to see my face when she said that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I was just like,
she's not having it.
I was not having it.
And it didn't matter. So, but this is why this is so great. So you literally gave me a lightning laser coaching, and I know what's coming from you, and I do this myself. So it's like, but still. And you're like, okay, let's talk about the fear. Like, let's really unpack it, because that's very vague and amorphous and big. But so are you afraid that you're going to fall out? Because there's a bar that goes at, what's that called?
Well, there's depending on which ride we run on, it was like an over harness. So I'm like explaining to Kris all of the different things. And I know y'all, they're going to come in the comments, but sometimes they failed. Shut the F up, right? I'm like in the middle of doing my business.
What do you
with my
mean
girl.
Sometimes they fail?
I tell her this now. This is after she's been on roller coasters, so she good. Okay, yes, but we went through the details.
We went through it all. And you're
Absolutely.
like, are you afraid you're going to pee a little bit? Like,
You're
have you
throw
ever
up?
peed before?
Do you
in your
have,
pants?
is it
As an
vertigo?
adult? Like, what is it?
Interviewing her.
She interviewed me like the best, just like Barbara Walters, like Oprah, until I was basically like, yeah, what am I afraid of? This might be fun. And cut to me screaming, laughing, crying, holding on to you for dear life, and having the time of my life.
Yes. And then so after I took her on our first roller coaster, she's like, what else we got? I was like, boom!
You did
It's
another
done.
one.
But the lesson for all of us, I think our fears do stay so amorphous in our minds. And so one of the things we talk about in Everything is Figureoutable, we take you through all these different exercises. And one of them is a way to take your fears that are like the big, scary boogeymen in the corner that all of us have, and get them down on the page so we can look at them and we can investigate them.
Right.
And then oftentimes they're little more than figureoutable paper tigers.
That's right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, in my programs, there's so many people over the years who have introduced themselves as a multi-passionate entrepreneur.
Have they really?
Yes.
Yes, they have.
Yes. And this is a phrase that you coined, and I love it. I'm like, you must have been through B-School. You know my best girl, Marie, don't you? And what I love about this is it gives so many people who have so much creativity, they don't know where to put it, and they feel so tormented by not being able to choose one thing.
To call themselves.
Yeah, and you talk about this so eloquently in the book, and how over the years that really like tormented you too, until you came up with this phrase.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, so many folks in this world kind of come out of the womb, and as they are children and develop into teenagers, like they know what they want to do. Like Josh, for example, he knew he wanted to be an actor. Like knew it, he is one, like that's his whole life. And I know other people who were like very clear, like I want to be a writer. And I love those people, like God bless them. They are amazing. And for so many years, I couldn't stand myself because I wasn't one of them.
Right.
And even as a kid, when adults would ask me like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be like a teacher and a dancer and a model and an artist. Like it was literally, I would go around like the adults were just like, wait, what?
All
like,
of it?
All
Okay.
of it. And so, especially early on in my career, I just felt broken because every time people would ask me, what do you do for a living? No matter what I was doing, but especially after I'd started my business and I was bartending and waiting tables, and then I had my coaching practice. And then once I added on dance and fitness and hip hop and all this stuff, I just felt like such a misfit, like I didn't fit in. And all of the career books and the success books at that time kind of gave a different version of the same advice, which was pick one thing, be really freaking good at that one thing, and like that's how you're going to be successful. And anytime I tried to follow that advice, I felt like I was cutting off a friggin' limb. Like it felt so unnatural to me. And every time someone would ask me at a party or just at any type of social event, like, so what do you do? I would want to run away and shame and hide because I never had a good answer. Ever. And then one day I just got a gift from what I would call like the career gods or the creative gods, where this phrase multi-passionate entrepreneur just appeared in my mental theater. And then when someone asked me what I did, like, I didn't plan it. It just like popped out of my mouth. And it completely gave me a new context for how I saw myself,
Right.
which then gave me a completely new way to interact and relate to people that felt so much more natural. And so I think the thing for me is I've never fit into a conventional box. And I think that there's so many people that don't, but we didn't really have language to describe how multi-gifted, talented, passionate that we are. And so, yeah, it's a silly phrase. It doesn't really mean anything. But for me, it was really meaningful because it gave me a new way to self-identify and talk about the fact that I'm different and unique. And this is what I'm working on right now. And here's what I'm passionate about. And here's what's going this way, that way. So I just love that people have adopted it for themselves in their own ways, because I think there's a lot of us that feel like we don't fit into the traditional model.
And if I can reflect on you, and I know that this is, relatable for so many people out there, is all of the different careers that you've had and all of the passions that you've had over these last decades.
Yeah.
They've all brought you where you are today.
Yes.
So for those folks who are like, oh, I can't possibly do that, you have no idea. If you had a crystal ball and you saw where you were going, you would realize actually you need to do that thing so that when you arrive at the place where you're destined to go, you've got that skill.
Totally. The experiences, the skill set, the blending of it. And I think more and more in our world and where we're going in the future is, I see this a lot on Team Forleo. It's like we have magical unicorns on our team that can do many different kinds of things. And so I love that our world is shifting in that direction. Again, if you are that kind of person who is born, you're like, I do this one thing and that is it. God bless you. We adore you. But if you don't happen to be that, don't feel shame. Don't feel embarrassment. Join the multi-passionate creative party and welcome to it.
Welcome to it. Okay, so something you and I do at the end of every year is what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because you did this last year, and here we are. Well, actually, you did this in 2018, right? But anyway, we have this end-of-year journaling practice. And we basically get both of our journals out. We get all of our
gel pens. Very colored and sparkly.
Super colorful, super sparkly. And we go to town we look back to spring forward. And then we also write down like what our goals are, what our dreams are, what do we want the next year to look like? And then we share that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about that is like you take this very seriously. Like weeks before, she starts asking me if I've done rough drafts. Like for real. She's like, we're meeting at 2:00 on that Saturday to go through this.
Y'all, you think it'd be real fun to be friends with me? Sometimes it's not. Like people think, oh, it'd be so fun. No, I'm a pain in the ass. I'm just, but a good pain in the ass.
So anyway, I remember when you wrote down this book.
Yes.
And what I love about this and why I wanted to talk about it is you don't just write down a goal. And this is something that you talk about in Everything is Figureoutable. You write down that goal, but then you make it measurable and actionable.
Yes.
And very specific. So it's not just, I want to write a book. It's like, I want the first draft done by December 31st. I'm going to do 1 hour a day, so forth and so on.
Yes.
So can you talk about why that's so important?
To have that clarity?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, one of the biggest reasons is we all have this magical genie in our brain who will work 24/7, 365 to help us bring our dreams and goals to life if we know how to use it. And so it's this part of our brain called the reticular activating system. We all have it. So little context. We are all bombarded with billions of bits of information constantly, right? Yet we cannot consciously process all of it. Mm-hmm. Great example. If you've ever been in a restaurant that's really busy or a cafe and there's like all of the, silverware falling and the ding of just being in that hum and it's loud, but someone calls Kris. In a moment, you can kind of tune out everything else and look to your name because you know that that's an important word. Same thing if you've ever been looking for a particular car or shirt or a dress or something, like you've kind of never seen it before. And then once you hone in on it, you start seeing it everywhere. That's your reticular activating system at work, helping you identify in the world what you have determined is important. So a lot of folks don't get clear and specific on what exactly they want, and they don't give that genie what she needs to help you bring it to life, which is a clear, specific, actionable goal. So what happens is once you let your brain know exactly what the thing is that you want to figure out or this dream that you want to bring to life, the most magical shit starts to happen, right? You start seeing all of these different opportunities to bring that dream into your life, and your subconscious mind is helping you do it when you're not even working on it. minute. When you're in the shower, you get insights. All of a sudden, a magazine shows up with the perfect article. Some friend sends something and you're like, oh, I should go check that DM. And it all starts to work. So I think clarity is power. You know, when I used to work with people one-on-one as a coach, one of the first things I would say in our coaching sessions is, hey, I can help you get anything you want, but first, you've got to tell me what that is. And you would be surprised, Kris, at how many folks couldn't tell me exactly what it is they wanted. And that would begin our work. Mm-hmm. I think some of the reasons so many of us have been pleasing others for so long, I like to say that some of us are dream anemic. We're like not even in touch with them because we don't feel perhaps it's possible. We don't feel that we're deserving. Right. We don't feel that we have what it takes. We don't feel that we're capable. But I think this, you wouldn't have the dream unless you already have what it takes to make it happen. So when you have the courage to articulate that dream and then put it on paper and make it clear and specific, and if you're like us, you use gel pens and sparkly pens, the magic just starts to happen from a neuroscience perspective, but then also from a soul for perspective, and also from a pragmatic perspective. You know, going back to where we went before, if you say this thing is important, well, then we need to start aligning your time and your energy with helping to bring it about. Like I worked my buns off for this book, which you know, it would have never happened just by writing it down. It was tons of early mornings and late nights and like working on it in the back of taxis and on subways. And do you know what I mean? Like in the little places just to get it done. But that clarity piece is everything. Because if we don't have that, we can't do all of the other strategies and really important work that we need to make it come to life.
And does this kind of dovetail into starting before you're ready? Because when
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Go. I want you to.
Start before you're ready.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, you know, one of the things that stops us, one of the things that has stopped me is not feeling like I'm ready.
Right.
You know, like I'm not ready to go for this big opportunity. I don't know enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not experienced enough. I think when I first started my business, I just felt like I wasn't old enough because I was 23. And quite frankly, I was pretty young and pretty green. However, most of us can believe this little lie called I'm not ready yet. And I think one of the other things 20 years in this business has given me is a lot of perspective. And there's been a lot of people I've been able to interview on this couch. And some of the most successful folks in the world have all started before they felt ready. And so I think it's just another one of those mantras that if we can train ourselves to bypass that I'm not ready yet and just dive in and get started and learn as we go and be okay with being messy and naive and kind of being sucky. I'm so sucky at everything I do when I first start out. I'm fucking hard.
Kind of not.
No, I am. You don't see everything. You see a lot of things. But here's the thing.
But no, you're absolutely right. The point is that you're not supposed to be like at the finish line when you first start.
That's right. Like every single pro was once an amateur.
Right.
And so y'all can watch my earliest videos. I mean, not that it's like, oh my God, they're so great now. But all the ones from the brick wall, me just like looking into my webcam, like they're all right there. So you can see the progression over time. I have certainly gotten better and gotten more comfortable because I've been doing it more. Mm-hmm. But you never get to the there if you don't start here.
Right. And you're never about chasing perfection. And that's the other thing. I mean, I know we're going through so many of these important mantras because they've given so many people permission to really go for it and live their best lives. And so I love that about you. And I love that you share that with every single person that you know. Like, don't worry about perfection. It's awful. It's a dream killer, as you would say. Yeah. Go for progress.
Progress, not perfection. I think that's probably another one. And it's hard in terms of the world that we're in right now and people seeing everybody on the gram. And, you know, people, honestly, they look at us and they'll look at our show and be like, oh, your shit's so perfect. And I'm like, you guys, you don't see everything. You don't, you know, we catch stuff and we fix it. But perfectionism is deadly. This is another interesting thing in the research that I did. You know, there was a study done where the folks, people who committed suicide, they interviewed their family and friends, and they found that over half of the folks who took their own lives were self-professed perfectionists. Perfectionism is not just something about the way that you do things in the world. It's a very unhealthy way that you see yourself as though you're deficient. and that you're not enough. And I think the thing I'd like to say to everyone, because I have perfectionistic tendencies, but there is a big distinction between having high standards and being a perfectionist.
Right.
You can have high standards and have it be really healthy and healthful, and you can still move ahead, progress, not perfection, without falling into the trap of perfectionism, which is where you beat yourself up, you don't allow yourself to grow, and you never actually put things out there to iterate over time because you're so nervous about being judged.
So let's talk about writing a little bit.
Yeah.
This book obviously is going to change so many lives. And the people who have had the privilege, like myself, of reading an advanced copy have already experienced that change. And it really is such a gift to the world. So thank you. Thank you. But I want to know how writing this book has changed your life.
I think that it has really made me understand some of the things that I've known intuitively more clearly from a scientific perspective, like doing a lot of the research that I didn't know that was out there, understanding even more about the brain and the body and the mind connection, and being able to share a lot of that in the book. And then I think for me as a human being, writing the book, quite honestly, I think this happens for anyone who creates. Like, one of the biggest challenges to writing this book was actually figuring out how to write it. And I said, isn't this a great kick in the ass, right? The girl who's writing Everything is Figureoutable has to figure out how to write the damn book. And I mean, I had called you on Skype so many times, like crying, going, I'm going to send the damn check back.
I was like, don't do that.
Don't do that. It was like, because it's like such a big idea. Yeah. And I'm really proud of myself because I feel like I did my best. And I knew it was not going to be easy. So the way that it's changed me is I feel like it's made me even more committed to the truth of this idea, and even more kind of excited to do hard things that are hard for me, right? Because I did it and I was like, oh, wow. Okay, this was brutal in some respects, but also I'm really excited that it's done. So I feel less fearful about bigger and bigger challenges.
Not only did you do it, but I remember those calls where there were some tears occasionally, and I was like, don't send the check back. Let's keep the check. But then after you hand it in, you're like, oh, I have an idea for my next book.
And can I tell you guys, both her and Josh were like, are you serious? You just made me promise you that I wouldn't let you do this again. And I was like, can't help it. Yeah, exactly. Let's go. Next idea.
Put the bar on. Well, I think with you and all of us, but I really see this with you, is your soul is always calling you to grow. It's always calling you to step up and to go bigger and to challenge yourself. And I think that the key to this book is, like, basically we all have that feeling, but this mantra, this philosophy, this guiding principle is what allows us to do the step up.
Yes.
And you do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All the time, every day. You do it for me. So I'm just going to wrap by saying that, you are my dream champion, and you're all of our dream champions, and all of the people out there who just love you, millions and millions of people, all of your fans.
Thank you.
You always tell us that we have these special, unique gifts, and that we got to shine our light and make our magic and keep going for our dreams and whatnot. And I just want to say, you keep doing that too, because we need you to, and we need you to bring us with you. And everybody, you guys, get the book, get multiple copies, give it to your bestie, get on Skype, devour it, chat it all up, create a book club, join the revolution, because this book will change your life. So thank you, baby.
Thank you. I love you so much.
I love you.
For everyone watching, hopefully you got yourself a copy of this here book. I am so excited. It's also on Audible, and it's read by me. And that was super, super fun. So if you are not the reading of the pages type, but you are more of the audiobook type, please go ahead and get it. And let us know if you enjoyed this. So thank you so much for watching. As always, the best conversations happen over at the magical land of MarieForleo.com. So go there and leave a comment now. And if you're not already, become an MF Insider. You're going to get access to exclusive content and special giveaways and some personal updates from me that I just don't share anywhere else. Stay on your game and keep going for your dreams, because the world really does need that very special gift that only you have. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time on MarieTV.
Hey, you having trouble bringing your dreams to life? Well, guess what? The problem isn't you. It's not that you're not hardworking or intelligent or deserving. It's that you haven't yet installed the one key belief that will change it all. Everything is Figureoutable. It's my new book, and you can order it now at everythingisfigureoutable.com.
Love is figureoutable. You know, you might not always get what you want.
Yes.
And sometimes you get something even deeper.
Yeah.